Hello my friends, this is Eric Parker with One Number Tableau Experts. In this week's video, we're going to dive into how can you set up a custom date filter in Tableau that lets you pick from whatever option your heart desires, like month to date, last year, prior quarter to date. And it also can, toggle between aggregated and non-aggregated calculations and do comparisons like, hey, what was the difference between sales this period versus last period? So there's a number of moving parts here. Let me show you what it is that we're gonna build, and then we'll build it, all right? So just as a, kind of high level example of how this would work. So there's sort of two toggles here. One of these is a parameter switch for measures. So I could either show just, hey, what was our total sales, or what was our sales per order, okay? And then I've got an option for some date ranges, and I just threw a whole bunch of them in here for fun so that we can kind of work through some of these, but you can put whatever you want in there. So quick side note, if you want to follow along with this, there's going to be links to two different things in the description below. One of those is going to be the complete version of this workbook. So if you just want to download it and you have all the calculations already and you can reverse engineer it, sweet. And we'll put a version of the workbook, much like it is at the beginning of this video, so that if you want to kind of build along with the video, then you can do that, all right? So here is sort of the base version of this workbook. It's got a few summary tiles that just have the sales field in them right now. It's got a line graph that's not filtered at all. So currently we're just seeing sales, sales, sales everywhere. Okay, so let me unhide the worksheets here and we'll get into this, okay? So first thing I wanna do is I wanna create the date parameter. I think that's what I wanna do first. So let's hit the drop down in our data pane and create the parameter. And let's start filling this out with what options we want available to us. So for my data type, I'm gonna choose string, I'm gonna create a list, and I'm gonna start to populate this. So as much as possible, I'm gonna try and put the same options in here that you saw in the example that I gave you at the beginning. So I think there were 9. They're essentially just different varieties of year, quarter, and month. So like month to date, last month, last 30 days. All right, let me just show this and do a quick spot check there for typos because I tried to knock that out pretty quickly. I think it looks good. All right, so how do I write a calculation which would filter this to whatever it is that I happen to select? Okay, so I'll hit this drop down here and create a calculated field. And so I'll call this my selected period, true, false. So what I would do is I would say case date parameter, and then something like this, when year to date, then, and how I would typically set this up, I like to use the date difference function for this. So I would say, is the date diff in years between the order date and today, if I can spell today correctly, 0. Okay, so I've only just encoded one of the options here, but it says it's valid, right? So let's do a quick test and then we'll come back and we'll add the other options in here. So we'll just say true. So currently year to date, we're at $300,000 in sales. Nothing else is coded yet, so those should all not work at this point. Okay, so we could take 5 minutes and I could talk and walk you through the logic for every one of those 9 line items. Or we could do the shortcut method, which is I'm gonna copy and paste this because I've already pre-written it. So this is the logic for all those different things that we've talked about. Last year would be the difference is 1 year from today. Quarter to date would be the date difference in quarter between the order date and today is 0. So it's all sort of written in there and you can sort of look through that and break those down if you want to. Now, a quick side note on this calculation, I cannot put this in the YouTube description. YouTube descriptions do not support carrots. I don't know why, just don't. They give you an error. So we'll put a link to our blog post down below as well. And you can always jump over to our blog if you just wanna direct copy and paste this. And there'll also be the downloadable Tableau public workbook. Okay, so there's our selected period filter. So that would apply to this worksheet. And then I think it should also apply to that trend worksheet. So I'm gonna hit the drop down, apply to worksheets, selected worksheets, measure trend, we say okay. And now this would also just show values based on the selected period. So if I said last 12 months or last quarter, it's gonna update. So cool, we've got some things working. So we have not yet figured out the prior period. So for example, the date parameter is set to last quarter. So last quarter, today's April 10th as I shoot this. So last quarter should in theory be January 1st through March 31st because I'm just working with calendar quarters. If you do fiscal stuff, that's a whole nother level. Description down below talking about, we got some videos talking about fiscal year stuff. So if you want to look at that, you can. You might need to modify this a little bit depending on your situation. But basically, I want to create another calculation. And actually, we could model this off of the selected period true false. So let me duplicate this and edit that. And this would be prior period true false. Okay. So the setups would be the same, but for instead of saying like this, like instead of year to date being, okay, the year is 0, then I would say the date difference is 1 and the date part, day of year of the order date needs to be less than or equal to the date part, day of year. Oops, struggling a little bit there. Of today. So today, I don't know, today is April 10th, so it's roughly the 100th day of the year, so it would be comparing the first 100 days of the prior year to the first 100 days of this year. It's roughly what that's doing. All right, so once again, I'm taking the lazy man's way out because this is already, I think, going to be a long video. So I've now just copied and pasted all my logic in there, like the end function in there. So this is how, these are all the priors that I'm comparing to. So instead of the last 30 days would compare to the prior 30 days, or last month would compare to the prior month, quarter to date would compare to the prior quarter to date. So all that stuff is sort of baked in there. If you want to break down these calculations, you can. Again, they're in the description in the blog post. And if you have any questions, or if you're writing something that's, you want an option that's not in that list, let me know if you're stuck, and I'll try and help out if I can. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw our prior period true false here on our filters card and say true. And once again, these values should update based on our selections. So that's cool. Seems like that's working pretty well. So we've got several things in play now, right? Which is, and if I do, where's I going with this? Yeah, let me add this parameter. I'm gonna add my date parameter. And then I don't remember exactly how this was set up in the original sheet that I showed you, but let me just do this. I'm gonna throw a horizontal layout container below my title. I'm gonna throw a blank object in there for now, and I'll probably come back and modify this a bit later, but I'm just gonna throw the date parameter in there for now. Okay, so before I go too crazy on the difference calculation, I wanna create the measure swap, okay? So what I mean by that is, let me create a calculated field, and we're gonna call this sales per order, okay? So what I would do is I would say, what is the sum of sales divided by what is the count distinct of order ID? So if we had $1 million of sales and 100,000 orders, then it'd be $10 in sales per order. Yeah, that's what we're doing here, okay? So let me just, yeah, I guess I'm not too worried about the number format of the individual field. So let me do this. I'm going to create another parameter. This is going to be our measure selection parameter. All right, and once again, data type string, list, and what are our options going to be? Sales, just total sales, revenue, or sales per order. So I'm keeping this simple, but obviously if you want to throw a bunch of fields in there, profit and profit per order and profit ratio and whatever, go crazy. You can add a lot more. I'm just trying to keep this a little bit higher level so we don't get too into the weeds. Okay, so now let me create a calculated field, and I'll just call this dynamic measure. So we'd say case measure parameter, when sales, then sum of sales, when sales per order, then sales per order. Okay. Important distinction here. If you get an error at this point and it talks about, hey, some of the stuff's aggregated, some of it's not, right? It's important that I made the sales field sum of sales and not just sales, because actually Tableau could already get ticked off at this level. When you're referencing fields in a Tableau calculation, Tableau either wants them all aggregated or all not aggregated. okay? We're gonna dive into that a little more in this video, but I'll also put a link in the description below if you wanna dive into a video that's solely devoted to that topic of aggregated versus not aggregated. We've got that for you. You can do that. So, sweet. So let me go through my worksheets now and swap these out. So instead of just sales here, it's going to be dynamic measure. And then let's actually just do a quick test on this too. So now if I switch this to sales per order is $431, but overall sales is $303,000. So we'll swap it, not measure parameter, rather, dynamic measure. We'll swap that here as well. And then let me go to my trend and swap it here as well. Now let me do a little number formatting, make this look like a dollar. Okay, should look a little better. And let's add that parameter through here as well. Nice. So now I should be able to toggle between these, and the summary tiles are changing and the sales comparison, well, we need to update that title, but that's changing. Now we haven't tackled this difference summary tile yet. We are going to get there, I promise you. But let's do a couple things to make this look nice, right? So what I could do is I could make these titles dynamic. So I could say, instead of just whatever this default thing is, summary tile, sheet, selected period measure, I could insert my parameters here. So I could insert my date parameter and I could insert my measure parameter, right? So it says year to date sales per order. And as I toggle this, the little title in my summary tile is going to update. Okay, now this is where it gets interesting. So obviously we can't just use the date parameter label in this summary tile, because that's not true. This is not last year, this is the prior year, right? Or if I select quarter to date, then this would be the last quarter to date or prior quarter to date. So we're going to create another calculation. I'm going to duplicate the prior period true false and edit this. I will call this my prior period label. And so instead of having a bunch of date logic, which is going to filter stuff true false, what I would do here is just, I'm going to copy and paste this calculation once again, save us a little time. It's just going to be a 1-to-1 conversion. So like when the date parameter says year to date, the prior period label should be prior year to date. When it says last year, it should say prior year, right? So it's just saying, okay, what is the comparison period for all of these? All right. Now what I'll do is here in my prior period summary tile, you can see I've got my prior period filter up there already. I'm going to put the prior period label. Let's put on something like tooltip or detail in the marks card rather. Okay, and then what I could do here is double click on the title now, insert the prior period label field, check that out, follow that up with the measure parameter reference. Okay, this thing got a little wonky. Sometimes when you're going in and moving summary tiles in and out, these things get a little messed up, their worksheet fit. So you can always, I'm going to change the fit back from entire view to standard and then back to entire view, and that should fix that fit. So this is pretty slick, right? It's like quarter to date sales, prior quarter, it's dynamic, it's going to update. Let's do the same for this down here. So I want to make it clear that this is just the current period. So let's go ahead and what am I trying to do here? Yeah, the date parameter. So it'd say something like quarter to date sales, and then I'll just throw like daily trend on there at the end. So now, yeah, it'll update like that. Sweet, that's pretty good. This is a little bit awkward here, this axis. Let me edit this axis. And a relatively new feature in Tableau is you can actually insert values here. So I think it's in like version 2023 maybe that Tableau started implementing this. So now I could insert my parameter and insert my measure parameter there. So it might say sales if sales is selected in the parameter, or sales per order. So that's pretty nice. Okay. So the last thing we have not solved for yet is this difference tile. So this is where things get a bit messy, and really, I mean, this video may be interesting regardless. You might say, oh, all this custom date filtering stuff is really cool, but we actually haven't hit kind of the final crux of this video, which is the concept of the aggregated versus non-aggregated situation, right? So I may just want to create a calculated field, which is just called difference, okay? And the way this would work is I would say something like, I would want to figure out what is the value for the selected period and then subtract the value from the prior period, and this tile would just report what is that difference, okay? So in theory, the way you would do this is you would say something like if selected period. So you could spell this out. You could say if selected period is true, but that's actually, I learned that recently, not totally necessary in Tableau. You can just say if selected period. Tableau understands that implicitly you mean if that's true. Then give me dynamic measure, end. And then subtract this from if selected period, prior period rather, then dynamic measure. But Tableau is not going to be happy about this because it says you cannot mix aggregate and non-aggregate comparisons of results in if expressions. So now what? We're getting this error again. Well, Tableau says, well, these fields here, selected period and prior period, those are not aggregated, meaning that those are row level arguments. So Tableau is going row by row and saying true or false. Either yes, this date is in the selected period, or no, it's not. Yes, it's in the prior period, no, it's not. But then we're trying to return an aggregated value, right? So Tableau is going, well, how do I say this? Well, you ask for sum of sales, or you ask for the sum of sales divided by the count distinct of order ID. So Tableau goes, well, that thing's already aggregated, so you can't do that. So we need to move our logic for the selected and prior period. We need to move it from here. We need to actually take it one level kind of up the food chain in Tableau to happen before the aggregation occurs. Okay, so bear with me for that. That is what we're going to tackle here in just a moment. Before we do that though, if you check out this info button up here, we offer office hours. So if you're checking this out or you get through the end of this video and you say, this thing was sweet, these guys know what they're talking about, but I'm still stuck, or my situation's a little bit different. Well, we've got 10 years plus of experience working with Tableau and related tools. So we're happy to help you. You can book an office hour to work direct one-to-one with us. You're also just welcome to comment. We're also happy to help you troubleshoot if it's something that's not going to take us more than a few minutes. This is just kind of our way of giving back. And then we also have classes. So, if you want to really dive deep and master Tableau, you can spend 2 or 4 days with us diving into the nitty-gritty of calculations or Tableau prep or data, dashboard design, whatever it may be. Okay, let's fix this thing, shall we? So I think to keep our brains straight, I'm going to tackle this in 2 parts. Okay, I'm going to actually create a copy of the original dynamic measure field, and I'm going to call this dynamic measure selected period. Okay, and so what we'll do here is I'm just going to work the selected period logic into these fields here. Well, actually, sum of sales is going to be easier because I could just say if selected period, then sales, end. Okay. Now, for sales per order, it's messier because that's still aggregated, right? So I can't just say, the sum, or I don't even know why you'd have a sum there, but I don't know what else. So if selected period, then sales per order. So once again, Tableau is not going to like this. What is this thing doing? All right. Because this is already aggregated, right? If you remember, I can actually show it to you here. Do my little breakout window, right? Sales per order, already aggregated. So what do we do now? Well, once again, we need to move things a little bit further up the food chain. So how would this work? I would say if selected period true, false, then, how about just this? Then sales straight up, okay, divided by the count distinct of if selected period, then order ID, okay? So now we've sort of recreated the logic. So I know this is getting really hard to kind of see because it's breaking out into multiple lines. Maybe that's the best way. I don't know. It's all a little messy. Let me just kind of, I'm just going to drop this thing over there until we see it kind of side by side there. So now, right, I've sort of worked this into here. I've said if selected period, true, false, then sales, and divided by the count distinct of if selected period, true, false, then order ID, end. So we've worked the date logic farther up our food chain so that it's impacting both the sales and the order ID values. Okay. So let's do the same thing. I'm going to duplicate that again, and then our life is much easier the second time around because we've already kind of worked out all those details. Now this will just be the dynamic measure for the prior period, and then all we need to do is these references where it was selected period true false are just going to become prior period true false, right? So prior period true false one more time, and booyah. Okay. And then now I can finally calculate our difference. And those are already aggregated, so I don't need to worry about aggregations or anything. I would just say, take the selected period value, subtract the prior period value. To be extra safe, you may want to wrap each of these in the ZN function. So if for some reason you had 0 sales quarter to date and you had 300,000 last quarter to date, it would say negative 300,000. Okay. So we're almost there. Now let me throw this difference field on text. I believe it is going to work. I want to come back and format it here in a moment, but let's jump back to our dashboard for a quick second. This freaking worksheet. Would you just stay entire view? Thank you. Okay. So the cool thing is now as we toggle this, the difference, it is calculating 680 minus 557 is 123. Yes. 303 minus 249 is 53,000. Yes, that is sweet. So, most things seem to be pretty good here. Now, I would like to make it really obvious if this is positive or negative. I think for the most part so far, our values are positive. Okay, there's a negative, so it's kind of obvious, I guess. But let me show you a couple little tricks that I would use to make it clear if this is a positive or negative differential, okay? So in our difference calculation, I'm going to do default properties, number format. I'm going to pick currency with 0 decimals and a negative values of a minus sign. But here's one extra little thing I'm going to do. Could we please have a plus button if it's a positive differential? Yes, we can with some custom number formatting. So we got a different video on custom number formatting. If you want to dive deep on that, check that out in the description. But if I click on custom here, what Tableau is doing is it's showing me this is what it should be for positive values, semicolon, this is what it should be for negative values. Notice the little negative sign. So all I got to do here is just say, put a plus there if it's positive. We say okay. That was just the dollar sign getting added. That's why that one shifted. But now, if it is positive, it will show up as a positive number. Sweet. Or I should say have a plus sign. And now, I can leave these colors as is. I think it'd be cool to have some sort of color variance, like maybe make it clear to the user, this is blue and this is blue, so those are the same thing. So, if we want to kind of get a little fancy with that, we can make this text blue and maybe the priors would be a lighter blue and the difference, I'm fine with the difference being gray. Yeah, honestly, you could probably even kind of code something so the difference would change colors if it's positive or negative. We're already this far into it, why not? So we'll just say difference greater than 0. So, is it positive or is it not? Let's give it a whirl, shall we? So if we're positive, what's a positive? I don't know, we already kind of used blue, so we sort of shot ourselves in the foot there a little bit. I'm a little hesitant of going green, but we'll do it. So there you go, positive differential, and then let's flip it back to a negative differential. So, okay, there's negative. Negative's going blue by default, but maybe we have that go orange. Cool, so now the color will even change based on, whether you're up or down, which is slick, right? So now we can swap our measures, we can swap our time period, so things are good. I guess I'm just going to update, honestly, I'm just going to go absolute bare bones here and just call this worksheet title difference. Let me take a quick glance. I think things are in great operational shape. So this is a longer form video. Thanks for sticking along. We covered a lot of different topics here. I hope it was helpful and interesting. I guess maybe the last thing I'm going to do, since I'm going to publish this for y'all, is I'm going to add a little border around this just so it looks kind of the way I want. So okay, if I think of anything else, I'll kind of add it as an addendum, but I think that's going to do it for us here. So thank you for following along. I hope this was interesting. Please, if you have a question, if you're like, it's so close to what I need, but my thing's a little different, just let us know, okay? We do videos like this about Tableau and related data topics every single week, so please follow along. We would love to have you here. We're all about educating you on kind of best use cases for these types of tools. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.